Ever since the first trailer for Monster Hunter Wilds debuted, there's been the palpable excitement for the graphical improvements it could bring. The series' then recent title, Monster Hunter Rise, looked good enough when it made the jump to PC, Xbox, and PlayStation from the Nintendo Switch, but still far from the fidelity that world offered. Monster Hunter Wilds seemed poised to make the next big leap, that fabled expedition into the next gen. And then, the first open beta hit. Suffice it to say that expectations were readjusted very quickly afterwards. Between performance issues on all platforms, horrendous image quality on consoles, especially in performance mode, and the low polygon monsters, which went from bizarre to beloved, Wilds clearly needed way more time for polish. While these improvements didn't carry over into the second beta, the development team did put in the work, adjusting the minimum system requirements on PC and swapping checkerboard rendering for AMD FSR upscaling. Prioritized frame rate mode also saw performance gains thanks to the fix for a rendering bug. All this is well and good, but how is the game at launch? Can Monster Hunter Wilds' technical chops match its ambitious scale? Let's find out. Changes from Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter World is famously the last title in this series to be developed on MT Framework before the company embraced RE Engine for its future titles. The technology allows for some pretty impressive new features. As stated earlier, that first trailer underscored how the developer was evolving on World's fundamentals. The locales haven't just increased but feel like full-fledged regions with detailed ecosystems, something which World dabbled in but not on this scale. Seamlessly going from your base out into the world without any loading is also super impressive, as is the day/night cycle. It's all something to behold, and that's not even getting into the endemic life, like the herds roaming around and the various interactions between plants and small birds in the world. General graphical analysis. However, it's the weather conditions that can steal the show, depending on the location. The starting locale, the Windward Plains, is an excellent example. When the sandstorms roll in, you can see it naturally sweeping over the map from the distance. Monsters are covered up in the middle of it, and if they enter a body of water, the sand washes off. You even see dust particles shifting off rocks and other environmental objects with the wind. Then you have the lightning storms, with bolts naturally hitting the ground and even congregating near the stone lightning rods. Even the Scarlet Forest is something to behold. When it rains, it pours, and you can see that following naturally, traveling down slopes or pattering off foliage. During the battle with Uthduna and some water bodies, it will move violently, which can even shift your movement. That added fidelity is also apparent in the character models, both for the humans and monsters. Characters animate more naturally, which especially carries over into combat. Watching your hunt feebly slash away at a monster while they're trying to get up and seeing them collide against the environment is incredible. The facial expressions are more natural, especially the eyes, and the sheer detail on fabrics and metal is great. That's even more apparent when fighting the monsters, whether it's Doshigoma's fur and folds bristling naturally as it ambles along, or Chatakabra's skin, which is still disturbingly moist regardless of the platform. It's not all sunshine and rainbows though, especially when it comes to the brightness. When playing through on PS5, I was amazed at how desaturated and gray the overall color tones could be. After playing around with the HDR settings, there were improvements, but it still felt odd in places. Things did feel more vibrant in the Windward Plains when the atmosphere cleared and the sun shone down, for what it's worth. PC specs and graphics settings. The PC version of Monster Hunter Wilds is chock full of options, with support for all major upscalers like DLSS 3.5, FSR 3, and XeSS 1.3. Frame generation is also included, and you can adjust the multiple quality parameters from the quality of textures, texture filtering, meshes, fur, foliage, and more to adjusting the cutscenes and background frame rate. Variable rate shading, screen space reflections, ambient occlusion, it's all here. Our test rig for the PC version consisted of an AMD Ryzen 9 5950X with an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3080 Ti and 32GB of memory. DLSS was set to quality mode at 4K with all settings maxed out. PC performance. As somewhat expected, given that 4K 60fps at ultra settings requires an RTX 4070 Ti 12GB of VRAM or an RTX 4070 Ti Super 16GB of VRAM, our test rigs hovered around 38 to 40 frames per second. It would often dip to 30fps in more visually dense scenarios, like open areas with significant herds roaming around and clear skies. The frame rates would improve during sandstorms though, hitting 45 frames per second in a relatively stable fashion. Nevertheless, the PC version's fidelity is pretty good, with solid image quality and draw distances. Some pop-in is visible in certain places, and there is a bit of asset loading in some scenes, but it's nothing too major or insignificant enough to escape notice at times. PS5 performance and resolution. Of course, things take a turn with the PS5 version. It offers 3 modes: prioritize graphics, prioritize frame rate, and balanced. Prioritize graphics renders at 1728p and targets 30fps, while prioritize frame rate renders at 1080p and targets 60fps. Both output to 2160p through upscaling, and the results are very mixed. Image quality and aliasing in performance mode look downright horrendous. Try walking through the windward plains while a thunderstorm rages for the most egregious example. The draw distance also goes for a toss with consistent environmental texture pop-in and asset loading, especially in the environment. Things improve somewhat slightly up close, though wandering through the Scarlet Forest, you're bound to see some poor aliasing among the foliage. Balanced and prioritized resolution are better in both aspects, though the aliasing still isn't perfect. Performance mode at least sticks mostly to 60fps, though you'll notice some pretty hefty drops at times, especially when loading back into the base from a hunt in a different region. You can also enable frame caps or turn them off completely, the latter required for 120Hz mode. I found this setup worked well enough for balance mode, delivering a relatively consistent 40fps. It also ensured a smoother performance mode experience. Resolution mode is perhaps the most stable, though there are still drops. Regardless of the mode, get used to seeing NPCs and monsters in the distance moving around at lower frame rates. PC vs PS5 quality mode. If it wasn't obvious enough, the PC version is the clear winner here. It blows away the PS5 version on quality mode with its image quality and aliasing, and also delivers higher frame rates, even if they can consistently dip. The latter depends more on your hardware configuration, so hitting more consistent frame rates by toning down a few settings isn't impossible. Conclusion. With how ambitious Monster Hunter Wilds can be with its scale, RE Engine is once again proven to be ill-suited to these large environments. The PC version does a relatively good job with its quality level, and even without following the ultra requirements stringently, we eked out on some pretty decent performance at the highest settings. As for the PS5 version, I prefer balanced mode with 120Hz mode enabled for that sweet spot between frame rate and resolution. Overall, it's an improvement over the beta, but still far from the best. Hey, did you know that we at GamingBolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.